Hi everybody, hello and welcome. This is science class and I am Miss Anne Opara, and in today's class we are going to be looking and learning about simple machines. We're learning about simple machines. So let's begin. Now, simple machines is simply in the name and it's very easy to understand. When we talk about machines, we say that machines are what? Devices that make our work easier, right? We say machines help us to, work easier, to work faster, right? Machines make things less stressful for us. Now, when you add the word simple to machine, it just means a machine that is simple. A machine that is not complicated. I'm just kidding. Now, when you want to properly define simple machines or talk about simple machine, you see that simple machines are devices that have few parts. They don't have too many parts. When they tell you to draw and label a simple machine, you are drawing something so big and labeling about 10 or 7 parts. No. When you talk about simple machines, they are devices, they have few parts, they don't have so many parts, and they make work easier for us. Now, we have six main types of simple machines. When we talk about simple machines, I mean stuff like scissors, wheelbarrow, hammer, a drill, a stapler. Like I said, these things are simple. You would not even pay attention to even think that these things are machines, but they are actually machines, and they are what we call simple machines. So, like I said earlier on, we have six main types of simple machines. So let's take a look at each of them. Okay, so the first simple machine we're talking about is the pulley. Now, if you follow this channel very well, you would know that I once talked about pulley. So, if you want to have a full understanding of what pulley is all about, so try to look for a video on pulley by Miss Anne of her right on this channel. Okay, so let's really talk about pulley. Now, a pulley is a simple machine that is made up of a wheel. Now, attached to that wheel is a rope or chain that is wrapped around that wheel. It helps us to lift things by pulling on that rope. We get that? So a pulley is a simple machine whereby you have a wheel, and on that wheel you can wrap a rope around the wheel, or you can wrap a chain around the wheel. So whenever you see a wheel and attached to that wheel you can see a rope or a chain around that wheel, we call it what? A pulley. So this pulley system helps us to lift things up by pulling on the rope. Now, examples of pulley, we have a flagpole. A flagpole, you can raise the flag or lower the flag by pulling on the what? On the rope. Now, another example, we have well. Well, what do we use well for? We fetch water from the well. And what do? We throw the bucket into the well and we pull it back to our source through the use of what? A rope. That's a pulley system. Another example is a construction crane. Now, construction crane is used on construction sites to lift and lower heavy objects, move heavy objects all around. So instead of the workers, stressing themselves, moving the objects all around when they are heavy, they make use of what? A construction crane on a construction site. So all these and more are examples of pulley. Also, I have a full video talking about incline plane, so you can do well to check out a video on incline plane by Miss Anopara. Okay, so just to briefly talk about incline plane. Now, incline plane is also a simple machine that is slanted. When you say something is slanted, that means it has a high part and a low part. So it's sloping from high to low, high part to low part. So that's what you call an inclined plane, an inclination. So a flat surface that is slanted, it helps us to move objects up and down easily. Now, examples of inclined plane, we have a ramp, such as a skateboard ramp. Those who make use of skateboard know what I'm talking about with their ramp. When you see them, they slope up, they slope down, having fun on their skateboard. You also have a pedestrian ramp. Sometimes you can see it in buildings. The part for wheels. Some people who make use of wheelchairs, so they have that ramp to help them easily get in and out of buildings, help them easily get in and out of vehicles. So that's what you call a pedestrian ramp. Now, another example of inclined plane is what you call staircase. Do you know that your staircase was a machine? Do you know that? So it's a simple machine. Machines don't have to be complicated, like I said. As long as they help you do things easier and faster, you can call them a machine. So your staircase doesn't need to have engines and what have you to be called a machine. It's a simple machine because it helps you to move up and down. Another example is called a slide. So that's that about inclined planes. So we have looked at two types of simple machine. The third one we're talking about is the wheel and axle. A wheel and axle is simply made up of a wheel that is attached to a smaller rod. So that rod that is connecting the two separate wheels together is what you call an axle. In a pulley, you have a wheel, and on that wheel, you are going to wrap what? A rope or a chain or a belt around it. Sometimes you can also have a wheel and axle and then you attach a rope around it also. So the rod is called the axle. Now when the wheel turns, the axle also turns. So this makes movement to be easier. So you can see a wheel and axle on anything that moves, anything that has a wheel, anything that has a tire is an example of what wheel and axle. So example, you have your doorknob. I know that's surprising, right? Your doorknob has a wheel and axle kind of system. So whenever you turn, you turn in your key, you touch the doorknob, everything moves together at the same time. Also, you have your car steering wheel. So if you turn the wheel to the left, the car moves to the left. You turn the wheel to the right, the car moves to the right. You also have your bicycle wheel, that's your bicycle side. You can see it moving. So as you move the front one, the back is also moving. You move the pedals, everything is moving together. So these and many more are examples of wheel and axle. Now, simple machine number 4 is what we call the wedge. Now, the wedge is any tool that has a sharp edge. A wedge is any tool that has a sharp edge. It can be used to cut or split things. Split means to divide. So you can always use a wedge to cut things or to split things. So some examples of wedge, you have a knife, an axe, you have nail, you have hammer, you have saw. So many examples. Okay, so anything that has a sharp edge that is used for cutting and splitting things is what you call a wedge. So you can see the examples there. You can see the knife there. You can see the axe. You can see the chainsaw, and so on. Now, simple machine number 5 is the screw. So the screw is any metal rod that has lines. You can call those lines thread. So it has lines around it. It is used to hold things together. Examples of screw, you have a bottle cap. Okay, you also have a screw. You have a bolt. You have your jar cover. The cover that is used to tighten or close up a jar. So you also have your light bulb. You can see it right there. So you screw it in, you screw it out. There's some light bulbs they have this pin kind of hook. So that's an example of a screw. You can see your light bulb, you can see your drill when you have to screw things in, you can see an actual screw just used to hold things together. You can see the screwdriver also, and then you have your bottle jar and your screw and bolts. So coming down to simple machine number 6, our last and final simple machine, we call this lever. A lever is a strong bar or rod that moves on a fixed point, and that fixed point is what you call a fulcrum. A fulcrum is a fixed point on a what? Lever. Now it helps us to lift, move, or push things easily. We have so many examples of lever, and then some examples are seesaw, scissors, spoon, hammer, a bottle opener. Now, a lever is kind of complicated in that we not just talk about the definition of lever and some examples. Now, a lever has parts. So let's look at the parts of a lever. So parts of a lever. Every lever has three parts. Every lever has three parts. Number one is what you call the fulcrum. The fulcrum is the fixed point where the lever moves. Fulcrum stays in place, but the whole lever system is moving. Now, the second part is what you call load. Now, load is that object that is being lifted up or being moved around. The last part of a lever is what you call effort. Effort is the force that you apply to either lift an object or move an object. Do we get that? So fulcrum stays in place, it doesn't move. Load is what you are lifting up or moving around. Effort is the force that you put just to move an object or lift an object. You can see this picture over here. This is like a seesaw. Remember I said that a seesaw is an example of a lever. So you can see the seesaw, you can see the blue part. It's fixed, it's not moving. But you can see the wooden parts, and that's our load. Do you know what a seesaw is? You have one person on one end of the seesaw, another person on the second end of the seesaw. So when you go down, the other person comes up. When that person applies effort to go down, you come up. So that's your effort and load being exchanged depending on what where force is being applied. Now let's talk about the classes of lever. So we look at what a lever is, right? We look at the parts of a lever. Finally, we're looking at the classes of a lever. Now there are three classes of lever. We have three parts of a lever and three classes of lever. We call it the first class lever, second class lever, and the third class lever. Now in the first class lever, in the first class lever, your fulcrum, that's your fixed part that doesn't move, is in the middle. It's in between your load and your effort. Example of a first class lever, you have your what? Scissors. Now the scissors has a fixed part that joins the two blades together. This kind of tiny circle. That's what you call the fulcrum. It's fixed. That part doesn't move. But you can always open and close your scissors. But that part doesn't move. So the handle of the scissors is where you apply force, right? To open up the scissors and close the scissors. So that colored part, the handle part, is what you call the effort. Now the part that cuts is what you call what? The load. Because that's where you put in the objects you want to cut or split. So can you see that? So your fulcrum is in the middle. That's an example of first class. Now talking about the second class lever. Now you have your fulcrum at one end, and then you have your load and effort coming after. So in your second class lever, the load is always in the middle. First class lever, fulcrum is in the middle. Second class lever, load is in the middle. Did you get that? So load is in between your fulcrum and your effort. Example of this is a wheelbarrow. So you can see the fulcrum is what is fixed. The fulcrum is fixed, it's not moving. Now you have a load. The load is where you put whatever, maybe it can be sand, you can put so many things in a wheelbarrow. You can put in sand, you can put in blocks, you can even put in your toys in the wheelbarrow if you have a toy version of that. So that space where you can put in things is what you call the load. Now the handle you have to hold to push or move the wheelbarrow is what you call the what? Effort. Now for your third class lever, you have your efforts. Your effort is in the middle of what? The load and fulcrum. First class lever, fulcrum is in the middle. Second class lever, load is in the middle. Third class lever, effort is in the middle. So FLE, you get that? Flare. So you have your load, you have the effort in the middle, and then you have your fulcrum. So an example of your third class lever is your what? What do you call that? That's a spade or a shovel. Let's call it a shovel right there. So you dig. So the part you dip into the sand is what you call the load. Then you have where you hold. Then you have your efforts. So that's all about classes of the lever. So we're gradually wrapping the class, and we've spoken about simple machines. That simple machines are tools or devices that have few parts, and they help to make our work easier and faster. And we said we have six main types of simple machine. We talk about the pulley, inclined plane, the wheel and axle, the screw, the wedge, and the lever. Let's look at the lever. That lever has three parts and three classes. So we took our time to look at each of those simple machine, their definitions, their examples, and now we are bringing the class to a close. So simple machines, they help to make our work easier and faster, right? They help us to lift, push, pull, cut, or move things around with little or no effort. So we make use of simple machines every day. We use them at home, in school, at work. So when we learn about simple machines, it helps us to understand how we use our energy. It helps us to better understand how things work. Okay, and without simple machines, many of our daily tasks will be harder and difficult, and they'll be slower. Because there's so many things that you did not know that were simple machines. Talking about the scissors. Scissors might not look like much, but it does help us out a lot. Even your staircase that you don't know was a simple machine, it's a machine. So it helps us to easily move around a building. Your bicycle helps you to get to a place faster and easier, right? So you can see that simple machines are very, very, very important. So we have come to the end of today's class, learn about simple machines. I hope you learned one or two things. I'll see you in our next video, okay? Bye bye.